Hi, and welcome to Have a Chat. I am your host today, Veronique Arsenault, and I am joined by my gloriously beautiful co-host, Judy Loge.
She has to say that in the new year. That's how you start off. No, we've missed each other. We haven't been together since before the Christmas holiday, Veronique. So, hello back to you and all of our viewers.
I know. I had to miss last week's show. I had probably
Yeah.
the worst tooth pain I have ever experienced in my life. I was having
Ah.
waves of nausea and pain. I couldn't eat, and I am not a meal skipper by any stretch of the imagination. And I couldn't, I just, it
Ooh.
was so awful. I compare it to the fact that I have had kidney stones and I have had my gallbladder
Oh.
that was gangrene and leaking in my body. I compare it to that level of
Oh,
pain.
I'm so sorry
Yeah.
you went through that, and I'm glad you are better now.
Oh, it was wicked. So that was I did miss last week's show for a good reason, although I was sad to miss it.
Yeah.
But it's so great to be back with you, Judy, and back with our viewers
Me
again. It's
too.
hard to believe it's
Yes.
2021.
Is it, or is it December 45th or December
It is December
69th, or what
45th.
is it?
It is.
Like,
It is.
are we
You're
still in
right.
2020?
Uh,
I think, okay, yes, we did enter a new year. Some days, right, Vero?
yeah, and you know what? It's so hard to believe that 2020 was what 2020 was. Like it just
I
I
know.
don't know, like
I
I don't
know.
think anybody could have ever envisioned that year.
No, no,
No.
no. It's going to be a movie
No.
someday, a horror movie.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, 2021, although hasn't quite started, the way we had hoped, there is some hope on the
Mhm.
horizon. We are seeing the vaccines roll out across,
Yes.
the world. And we are
Yep.
seeing some, positive effects from that. I know that we're not
Yeah.
having the downward spike yet that we had hoped, we would see.
Mm-mm.
And of course, in the province, we're in the red zone for the most part,
Yep.
with cases climbing. And I mean, it's easy to see that these, the cases can double in days, like without even, really
Yeah.
anything happening.
And you're kind of holding your breath until Dr. Russell gets on the news and makes her announcement for the province of New Brunswick, because I'm thinking, oh, what is it going to be today? And for any viewers, we said last week we're in zone 7. And yeah, you just hold your breath and think, okay, when's this bubble going to burst? But you have to remain positive and protected. And that's all we can possibly do, is wait it out and see. And hopefully the vaccines will just keep rolling out. Just
Yeah, absolutely.
pray.
And
Yeah.
it's amazing to me, Dr. Russell, day after day after day after
Hmm.
day after
Hmm.
day after day. This is
I
this
know.
is she is as tired as we are of COVID. She must be
Yeah.
just like, how is she doing it?
Mm,
My hat's off to her because it is an incredible responsibility, and she
yeah.
she shoulders it so incredibly well, and she must get so frustrated and tired and exhausted like the rest of us, but even more so because she's dealing with everybody's health.
Yeah, and like her personal life has to suffer because you're drained after all of that. She has a family, she has a life aside from politics and the being the chief medical officer. So yeah, she's a beautiful soul. And I just, again, last week I gave her a shout out and kudos to you again, Dr. Russell, just doing an amazing job, so composed and so intelligent and always on top of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right. It's I couldn't imagine having that job. I don't want it, and thank God for her is all I can say. But
Yes,
you know
yes.
what? Huge world events happened last week, which we all got to watch play out on TV, including the inauguration of the new president of the
Mm.
U.S., Joseph Biden,
Yay!
and he's number 46. I know.
Yeah, yeah.
We definitely haven't made a secret of the fact that we are not Trump fans on this
That's
particular
okay.
show. Yeah,
That's okay.
that's okay.
I
That's okay.
mean, there's there's Biden, there are people that don't like Biden either, and everyone's entitled to their own
Absolutely.
likes and wants. And I can't say I'm just not going to talk about Donald Trump because you know how it works me up. So we'll talk about our new
Yep.
president of the United States. Yes.
Well, and you know what? The inauguration was incredible to watch, and it was history in the making because, of course, Kamala Harris is the new vice president of the US, and she is the first woman vice president.
Yeah.
She is
Yeah.
the first woman of African descent and Asian
Mhm.
descent. And, just just amazing and so brilliant and well spoken and to watch her
Yes.
take that oath was moving.
Yes. Oh my gosh, totally. And the discord that happened, just a couple of weeks ago at the Capitol, and the total chaos, and I was so embarrassed of my fellow man, let's just put it that way, whether they were Americans, but I was just appalled at the behavior. But again, it takes a very poised, calm leader to set the tone, and that wasn't happening. So a lot of the times that erupts when you have somebody that's conducting such poor behavior themselves, that they don't have that control themselves, and what happens is everything falls apart, which it did. And you could just see, watching the inaugural Joe Biden, standing up there as the 46th president, the calmness that swept over the nation. It was amazing how things can just change on the turn of a dime with new leadership, and how people settle down when things are spoken calmly and rationally, and when you're talking about unity and having none of this division or racism and all of that. I think Biden, even though he's 78 years old, is a true gentleman. I think he's very wise, as he's been, so long alongside of former President Barack Obama. And if I may I share the quote from the star of the evening, the
Oh
night of the
yes,
inauguration?
absolutely.
Okay. So I know you and I are going to talk about it, Veronique, and that is the
Yep.
amazing Amanda Gorman, the
Mhm.
youngest inaugural poet in U.S. history. We shall touch on that, but first, her quote was and is for me the quote of the century. There is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it.
Oh, I
Yeah.
just got chills again.
What
Yeah,
can we
it
say
was just
about that
stunning.
girl? She is
Mhm.
stunning. She made history as far as I'm concerned. I was blown away. That's all I can say, was I was blown away by her poem. First of all, the content, the intellectual
Mhm.
capabilities of a girl that's not quite 23 years old.
Mhm.
Her poise, her command in front of the world, on the world stage, at the inauguration,
Mhm.
what she lent to the whole scene of history and new beginnings. What was your thoughts on her? I had goosebumps listening to her.
Well, and I think, it's that promise of our leaders, and our future leaders, right? She is that generation that's going to, lead us into, a better world, and for her
Hmm.
to be able to get up there and express, to have composed that and then
Yes.
share that with the world, as you just said, and i- that is one of those things, if we have the courage to be that light, then we can make the world better for our fellow,
Hmm.
humans, and
Hmm.
and um,
Hmm.
she will be quoted for generations to come.
Yeah. Well, she could be a future president for that matter, and I don't see why she wouldn't probably want to aspire to be that, because she has all of the makings of a future president of the United States. So I think
Mhm.
she was, and you know me, how I love my fashion. I guess anyone that knows me knows I do. And she also was noted for her fashion, and she also spoke up about it. She chose to wear a bright lemon yellow coat by Prada, the designer, and that was purposeful. And she also
Mhm.
wore the red headband. So by the sunlight yellow, it was shedding the light that she hoped by her poem that it would carry that extra
Oh.
weight and image. And by the red, that power symbol of all that's yet to come. Yeah, I just loved her. And, there are so many young, influential leaders in this world. I think there are 7 under 23 world female leaders at this point. And they're advocating on everything from human rights to immigration, gun law reform, you name it, they're doing it. And so I put the power in our youth, and there is so much to be said about young people. A lot of people are
Mhm.
harsh on kids today, and they can find fault with children, but they are our future, and they're bringing to the table that was just an example of what Amanda brought to the table when she gave her amazing, amazing poem.
Absolutely, and you're very right, there are future, but there also are right now, I mean,
Oh
she
yeah,
has become a world leader in an instant, which is
that's right.
amazing. And one of the things that I loved about Joe Biden being elected, and not even just the inauguration, but elected, is that everybody talked about the fact that he got elected, but what overshadowed everything, and I loved it, was Kamala Harris. Everybody
Oh,
talked about Kamala Harris being the first VP, and as you saw on that stage yesterday, in during the inauguration, Lady Gaga sang the national anthem with incredible
beautiful.
power and poise and grace, and then you had
Mm,
J Lo, who's 51 and looking better than most 20-year-olds,
yes,
and she
yeah.
sang, and then you had Amanda Gorman. And I just want to touch on, and I love the power of seeing those women up there leading that stage, but I want to touch on Garth Brooks for a second, because
Okay.
I love me some Garth Brooks. Absolutely adore Garth
Yeah.
Brooks. And it's interesting because he took a lot of flack for performing for Biden, because he is typically a Republican in his private life. And he said, you know what? He said, I've performed for every president except for since Carter, except for one. And what he really wanted to do is to show unity. It wasn't about
Right.
being a Republican or a Democrat. It was about being an American and showing that unity. And he,
Mhm.
I love Garth Brooks anyway, but I thought he did an amazing job.
I did too. And I just want to touch on Biden's character as a human being, not as the president of the United States, because that is just an incredible feat in itself to be the 46th president. And there was so much chaos leading up to it, but he stood his ground as a gentleman. And that man, Veronique, has been through so much in his personal life that he exemplifies being strong and being and able to endure the worst of the worst. He lost his wife, Nelia, in 1972, his first wife and his little
Mhm.
baby daughter, Naomi. They were going Christmas tree hunting. And so they
Mhm.
were in a car crash. They had their two sons. She had the two sons in the car with her daughter. So she was killed. Her daughter was killed. The two boys were critically injured but survived. And then, he lost. And so that was a tragedy. He said he was never so crazy about anybody in all of his life as he was his wife. So
Yeah.
he lost not only the love of his life, but his child, and then had to stay at the bedside of his two sons while they recovered. And then he lost his son to brain cancer, Beau Biden, in
Yeah.
2015. Another huge tragedy. He loved his son so dearly. Um, to go through all that trauma and then to rise to the level where he has, set the world. Let's just say he's going to make a big change in America. And I think it's going to be an awesome, even though he's not going to be perfect. There's nobody that's perfect, never will be.
No.
But I think he's going to give it his best attempt in doing the very best job. And I find him very, very sincere and
Mhm.
a gentleman, a gentleman.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, I think she continued to work the entire time that he was vice president, and she was second
Mhm.
lady. And, she has her
Yeah.
doctorate, and just an incredibly brilliant woman. And I know
Yes.
that she will help to influence him as well.
Yeah, but you know what she has to learn to do? She has to learn how to wave better. Did you like I thought her like I know Jill, you're not going to hear me. There's no chance of that. So I know I'm just going back to Michelle Obama and how graceful she was with her little wave and
Yes.
elegance, which it should be. But Jill's just there like there's a whole like just get it going here. And
Mhm.
I find that
Yeah.
almost funny. It's really funny to
Yeah.
watch because I don't think she realizes she's doing it. But
No,
I'm sure the
probably
world's
not.
aware of it.
Yeah.
She's
Well,
extremely
and
proud.
I love her, and you're right. She'll learn though. She'll learn. It'll be okay.
Oh, I'm just teasing
Anyway,
about it.
we have an amazing show. We have an amazing guest. So we want to make sure that you don't go too far. You want to see this one for sure. And I know that Judy and I are really looking forward to having this conversation. So go grab something to drink, grab a little snack, and come on back after the break. We've got lots more show for you here on Have a Chat. Don't be gone too long. We'll see you in a few minutes. Hi, and welcome back to Have a Chat. I am your host today, Veronique Arsenault, and I am joined by my ever wonderful co-host, Judy Loge.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Have a Chat.
Yeah, we're so excited to have our next guest join us, and we're thrilled for her to be here to share her story with us. And I want everyone to welcome Juanita O'Reilly to the show. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome, Juanita. Thanks for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me.
We're so pleased to have you. And just, for those out there who don't know you, can you just tell us a little bit about you, Juanita, how, where you grew up and all that kind of good stuff?
Okay. Well, I was born and raised here in Miramichi on the Chatham side. I grew up down by, if anyone's familiar with Miramichi, down by Stevenson Store. That was my area of growing up. I pretty well lived here all my life. I'm married to Sean O'Reilly. Some people may know him from lots of museum work. He's the president of the Miramichi History Museum. I had two children, Tyler and Allison. Allison is now in Montreal. She works part-time in a radio station at Concordia University and is taking nursing. And of course, I'm here because of a tragedy in my life with my son, Tyler. He passed away from an accidental overdose 6 years ago. And I have started sharing his story in hopes that I can help other families who are struggling with the same issues that my family has struggled with.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. Juanita, there couldn't be a more sensitive topic, I don't think, or heart-wrenching topic to talk about than losing your flesh and blood. And you're saying you lost a son, but we know that he's still just on the other side. That's how I like to think about it, that we're always going to keep his memory alive because he was just one of those boys that you described to me that was just an exuberant person in life, loved people, people loved him. So walk there and he can die, and the viewers, just through it a little bit and talk about Tyler from the time he was a little boy onward, and just let us know how things kind of unraveled. What happened?
Sure. Well, he was a wonderful child. He's very affectionate, loving. He gave the best hugs. He was mischievous, of course, but he was great. He made lots of friends and he loved people. He loved making friends. He could talk to anybody. And he was just an all-around wonderful person to be around. He was funny, caring, sensitive, creative. He was like everything. He was great.
Yeah. And he was your firstborn child, correct? Or
Yes,
your baby?
he was. Yes. Yeah. No, he was my firstborn. My daughter's my baby.
Firstborn?
They're both my babies,
All right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. We always say that. They don't like the word, but we love that word.
I do.
Yeah. Veronique,
So
anything you wanted to address?
Yeah, absolutely. So Juanita, I guess start or help us understand how Tyler could accidentally overdose. Like, how did that start? Was it a problem that he had up until that point? And kind of lead us through that, please.
Well, he in his early teens, he started like exhibiting behavior that was kind of out of the norm. He always had difficulty in school, and it was always a challenge, getting him to go, trying to get him involved. And then he stopped going to school. Like, I'd be getting calls from teachers, and we'd be having meetings trying to keep him involved. He started staying out late, sometimes not coming home, which was scary. So this was in his teen years. And luckily, I had one of his friends was honest with me and said that he had started using drugs, which is was just devastating to me. And I, tried, of course, the first thought that I had was, oh, I've got to get him into treatment. I've got to get him into detox. And which I don't think that was the right approach, but I didn't know any better. And that's kind of all that there was, really. Like I was mentioning to Judy, like it was like, went to detox, and then he came home. They sent him to an AA meetings, but it was no conversations about why or how he was, like, the reason why he was using, like, why, what was it about it that, wanted him to, like, I can see trying or experimenting, but why was he wanting to use in the first place? Like, and those weren't the conversations that you had. It was just like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. No, stop. Yeah. Why can't you stop? Those are really the only ways that I was dealing with it, which come to find out later was the wrong approach.
How old was he at that time, Juanita?
He was in his teens, like probably from the time he was around 14, 15 till his early 20s was kind of like a back and forth. And then he, probably in his, by the time he was 24, 25, it got better. I thought it was over. Like and I think it pretty well was, but he didn't have the problem with it, but he still used. And I think what had caused his accidental overdose was using after a long period of not knowing the dangers. And that's another issue that really needs to be addressed, because we don't talk about it. We just say no, and we need to have more open conversations about it.
We certainly do. And I'm going to just speak up right here, right on TV in public, and say that I know a huge amount of people that are fantastic people that have gotten themselves into a situation where substance abuse is taking over their lives. I can also speak from experience that a lot of these people that have children, such as your own, and are either right now going through a program or have lost their lives, or are going through the journey on a minor scale. Some are more full blown, of course. They don't understand, I don't think, that what I'm going to say is these kids a lot of the kids that I know come from really good homes. You and your husband are known in Miramichi for your love of people, for your kindness, for your giving, for your good morals and upbringing, and just as family people. So I would like to just kind of get that off the table, that it's not people that are neglecting their children or even users at home a lot of the time, or just ignoring the facts. Addiction is a serious, it's addiction. Some kids have addictive personalities. Some kids can smoke or smoke weed, or they can do coke, or they can do whatever as adults can. And that is their few now and then times. But there are other people, whether it's alcoholism, pill usage, heroin, whatever, that it takes a hold of them. It consumes them and it swallows them up. And so, you're a wonderful person, and your husband's a wonderful man. Did you have some association of guilt when you thought, what am I doing wrong? When you knew you were doing nothing wrong but being a good mom and trying to give good, advice to your son and daughter growing up?
Oh, it's the blame. The blame, it's I don't know how to explain how I blame myself. I went, mothers are, and it's hard for mothers too. I don't know if we're as hard on fathers in society as we are on mothers, but we're either on a pedestal or we're like the worst mothers ever. So I went through the blame of what I did wrong. And I mean, no family's perfect, and by all means mine is not. And with addiction or problematic substance use, it's not, it's what they're trying to do is they're not dealing with pain, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain or something about that is giving them some kind of comfort that they're not getting somewhere else. And that was hard to do, because I mean, if love could have cured Tyler, he would still be here, because I mean, I love that boy to death.
Yep.
But
Yes.
I don't know if the way I was approaching his substance use was helping him. Like, I think by not talking about it openly and not being compassionate and supportive, it made him, lie about things or hide things from me that maybe if I knew the truth, I would have dealt with it better, but I just didn't know why he was using. And it was like, after he passed and just getting into advocacy, there were so many light bulb moments. So I want to share my story so that other families, who may be making the same mistakes that I had made with, don't use, and yelling and trying, or being disappointed, or, they know and they love their families, but with the substance use, that's just more powerful, and it's hard on them. And like, that's why they lie, because they don't want to hurt us. But there's something more
Juanita,
powerful.
do you think that, I mean, you can look back now and say, I should have done, or I could have done, but I mean, I know, and I don't know a lot, but I know that you did what you thought was absolutely the best thing for him at that point, right? And
Exactly.
but do you also think, because I mean, we've evolved as a society, we're talking about mental illness more often now, and we're not there yet, but it's definitely part of the conversation. But do you think that part of that challenge for you and for him was that stigma attached to having a child that has a substance abuse problem, whatever it may be, and really not having that kind of necessary support or outlet to be able to talk about it?
It's definitely the stigma, because that's what keeps everything hidden. And no one had ever, like, even after Tyler passed, no one ever said, "Oh, Tyler deserved to die," or he was a drug addict or meth head or crackhead, whatever. They never said that to me. But I hear other people's conversations regarding people who use substances, and when that's in your family, you don't want them take that way. Like, I said in my piece that I didn't want Tyler looked at as one-dimensional, because that wasn't all he is. And that's why when we use things like addict or druggie, it boxes people in, and that's not the whole of who they are. That's just one thing that they are dealing with, and it keeps it hidden, and more chance for overdoses or families falling apart, because it does create a lot of havoc in your family, like, and siblings or your relationships. It's all encompassing, and people work, they have bills to pay, and on top of that, the strain and stress of it is measurable.
Yeah. Like you said, nobody who in life is perfect and what family is perfect. There is no such thing in existence as far as I'm concerned. Everybody has troubles. And it just happened to be that Tyler fell into that wrong avenue and went down. Were you able to sort of look back at maybe thinking between you and your husband or friends, family, that there may have been something that sort of exacerbated the need to use, maybe a trauma that he has sustained unbeknownst to you as a child? I mean, whether it be it could have been an abuse by a friend's father, or did all that go through your mind too? The causes, maybe, like you said, hiding some pain. Did anything ever say, oh my gosh, maybe that time he was involved in hockey or ball, or we're just hypothetical theory here, whatever activity, that there may have been something done to him that he was trying to hide from by using, and that would take it all away?
I've gone through lots of things in my head, like I was a young mother. He was a very sensitive boy. He really felt other, like he'd come home and tell me stories if this kid at school was being picked on, and if he stuck up for them, or he was just very sensitive, and he just wanted, to be liked and to have fun. And so, but like I said, I didn't know that any type of trauma like that would lead to it. And I can't have the conversation with Tyler now. It's just guessing. And I one thing I wish I could do was have those type of conversations with him.
To really
How
know,
old
to
was-
really, really know.
Yeah, he was.
How old was
like I said,
Tyler when he passed?
he was 28. And like I think, like one of the reasons why I think that he had pretty well beat it, like he did, like when I finally requested his autopsy, like it said that he was a young man who died of an accidental overdose, with reduced experience with morphine and other drugs. That was the cause of death. And I know that he did have experience with drugs, but he had no damage or anything in his body to show that it was a prolonged use. So I do believe that he did beat it, but he was out, having fun one night out, and he just overdid it.
And
Yeah.
like I said, we can't get into it too much in depth now before our break. But when you get that call, the whole bottom just basically falls out of your world, right? You're in disbelief, first of all. I mean, what kind of a shock? It's your worst nightmare for anyone listening that knows about having this experience, Juanita. How long? We'll follow up after the break, but just for a little bit of information. How do you react when you get a phone call like that, when it's your son that you love more than anything in the world, aside from your daughter and your husband? How does that work when the phone rings?
Sean had happened to call me, and I was at work at the time. I was working at West at the time, and it was just disbelief. And I hardly have any recollection of flying home, the period after, like we had to wait for the autopsy, wait for Tyler to be shipped home because he did pass away in Toronto. The wake, it was like the shock. I just was
numbing.
Yeah. And then it's so busy when everyone coming and, with their condolences, and everyone is so supportive in Miramichi. Like they're wonderful people. And but then after that all goes, then it kind of sits in, and it's
actually, I want to come back to that particular thing, because I know with grief itself, it's that after period. So we'll go to break, and then we'll come back and we'll revisit that piece there. So don't go away, everybody. We want to make sure that you stick around for the continuation of Juanita's story. I know that all of you out there, just like me, want to hear how we're here now 6 years later. So go grab a hot coffee or a hot chocolate or a hot toddy of some sort, and come on back and see us in a few minutes. Come back after the break. Hi, and welcome back to Have a Chat. I am your host today, Veronique Arsenault, and I am joined by my always stunningly beautiful co-host, Judy Loge.
I'll take that because I have a migraine. I'm fighting through this show, let me tell you. But
I know. They're so tough.
That's okay. We're going to be, it's all good. Like I said, we all have our days, right? And we have a beautiful lady joining us here today too, who Veronique introduced earlier. And was just leading into a question before we went to break. So Veronique, you continue right on with Juanita.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're so lucky to have Juanita O'Reilly here with us and to talk about, her journey with her son through drug and addiction in general. But we talked a little bit about before the break, when that grief comes and what happens, after everybody's gone, right? Because everybody's there, you know, right after, and they're offering condolences, and it's a wonderful thing. We need that when we lose someone that we love. But then they go on because their lives go on, and you're left with that grief. Talk to us a little bit about how that evolved for you, and the supports that you had and that kind of thing.
Well, I after everyone's gone and it kind of sinks in, it's like relearning to live your life without a very important part of your life. And it was hard. I was lucky that I went back to work shortly after because I was working at a place where I was alone most of the day. So I could work along, cry, grieve, and everyone who I worked with was very supportive. So if they came upon me in tears, they knew, and they would give me a hug and let me be. So that's was wonderful. Like the support that I've got, that I had gotten where I was working, and with family as well. Like it's it's tough. It's just relearning to live your life because you don't have like talking to Tyler, getting like I love you messages or hugs from him anymore. Like it's painful. Like
total gut wrenching pain, right? From it couldn't be any deeper than that. That profoundly painful. Juanita, how long before you were able to actually pull yourself together enough to go more, like say, be out more in public and feel the right to have a little joy in your life? You know, we all have that guilt that if someone passes away, we shouldn't laugh too soon, we shouldn't be too bright too soon. How many years, weeks, months, whatever, before you were actually back to a little bit of the mom you were before you lost your son?
Probably not just probably a few months after. Like I still like would try to have conversations. Like I remember I was sitting at supper with some coworkers, and one of them started to talk about their problem, and she said, "Oh well, it's probably nothing compared to what you're going through." And then I'm like, "Yeah, okay, I win, but that still doesn't mean that you don't have problems and that I don't want to listen to them." Like it's hard because people kind of, it's not that they want to isolate you, but they don't know how to interact with you and deal with your pain. Because like if you care about anyone and they're in pain, you want to take it away. And this is one thing that no one can take away from me. It's just something that I have to deal with and live with. And but like just with friends, like just having chats, and then all of a sudden you're laughing. And I remember, starting to compartmentalize like my grief so that I could function better. So I would like, I have to get up, I have to go to work, I have to do this, sitting with friends, talking. And then if it got too much, I knew my alone time is when I would cry. And I remember the first time I was in bed and I'm like, I don't think I cried today, which made me cry. But it's funny. But like it was that was a good year or more after that. I think I went through a day where I didn't tear up about it and have a good cry. But like the support of friends and family was really helpful. So after losing someone to an overdose is, you deal with the loss, but then you're also dealing with the stigma surrounding the way our society looks at people who use substances. So it's a different type of grief because there's so much stigma attached. And like, we talked about, blaming yourself, like what mother, doesn't save their child when they're going through something, or, the way people, like I said, talk about people who use drugs and being very protective of his memory. So I didn't want to talk about it. So I think I was just scrolling online, and I came across a group called Mom Stop the Harm. And I started reading about it, and it was just exactly what I was looking for. So I sent an email off, and I met with one of the founders. So it's a group that was started out from mothers from BC and Alberta who had lost their children to, accidental overdoses as well. And they were trying to fight for, uh, ending the stigma, supporting harm reduction, a different approach to what's been happening out there. So that's when I started becoming involved and advocating and starting to share my story as well. But that was probably in 2018. So it was like a good 4 years. No, 2016. Sorry. It was like 2 years after, and then I was home in 2017. And then that's when I started sharing my story.
But Juanita, locally, there's certainly more to be done on the home front here. We know it's all across the world. Addiction of various degrees and accidental overdoses are occurring just every minute around the world. But locally, what can we do as citizens? We know there's been so much talk about giving, rehabilitation to those that can come together and have therapy and go through it all together. And what do you think we should be doing right here, right in our own city of Miramichi, New Brunswick, Canada?
Well, first thing I'd like to see is ending the stigma around it, so that families and people who need help will be not so isolated and be able to get the help. And of course, we do need to have the help there when they're ready for it. So we need to support, evidence-based treatment programs, because it seems like I was talking earlier, there was only certain options, and everyone is different, and how they need to receive treatment is different as well. Like someone who may be a long time user who's looking for treatment may not be able to go through detox, a 30-day program, and out on their own. And when they do finish a program, what is there for support when they're out? Is there stable, safe housing? Are they going to get the counseling that they need? And is that counseling, targeted to what their specific needs are? Like whether it be a man, a woman, LGBTQ, Indigenous, like veterans, like what type of treatment is available for everyone? And we need to put more money into mental health. It's everybody's saying it, and it's just not happening, and it's just so frustrating. So I'm hoping, just telling my story, that people or families that are going through it, know that they're not alone. And I'm hoping that, maybe they would reach out, and if we can build like kind of a movement, because the more voices that are speaking out about it, then the more things will get done. Like I've partnered.
Love it.
Yeah, like I partnered with groups like in Moncton and Fredericton, and because the more people that are like I said, it takes an army to get something done.
That is right. Exactly right.
Absolutely.
You're doing a great job. We support you in your endeavors. If there's anything we can do, Veronique and I, we're very much into volunteering and pitching to people, and we have such a great city of givers that I think it can be done for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, hopefully. Yeah.
And is that what prompted you to write? Because that's where I first, I remember when Tyler passed. I didn't get to know him, but I did know your husband through the museum, particularly. But it is. But I really, when I read the story of Tyler, that it touched me so much. I thought it was so amazing that you were able to do that. And like what prompted you to write that piece so that you could share your story that way as well?
Well, when I joined Mom Stop the Harm, that is how we advocate. You'll see the mothers with pictures of their children that have passed, and it puts a face, because statistics are just so cold, and people don't relate to statistics. Like if 130 people between 2016 and 2019 have passed away from overdoses in New Brunswick, and there's no they're just a statistic. It's just a number, but they're people and they're human
Mm,
beings and they've had lives
yeah,
and they had families that love them. And
yeah.
people need to know that because
But they're
everybody,
good
has a
people,
family
right?
and
Good
loved
people.
ones. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
good people, or, maybe sometimes they have not done such good things because of what had happened, but they deserve,
Mm-hmm.
to be treated with they
Hmm.
deserve a chance to live. And
Mm-hmm.
Right.
so that's how, like Mums is doing their advocacy through telling their stories and, partnering with people to make sure that things can be done so that we can end this overdose crisis and get people the support and the help that they need. And so being a
Mm,
part of Moms, the Canadian Drug Policy Coalition had put together this 2-year project called Getting to Tomorrow, Ending the Overdose Crisis. So when they came to New Brunswick, Ensemble in Moncton, the coordinator there had reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you want to be part of this?" And I said, "Sure." So it was like people with lived experience, governmental agencies, police, like all the stakeholders in who,
mhm,
you know, who can be a part of ending this overdose crisis, coming together and finding solutions and sharing stories. So they said, "Do you want to share your story, Juanita? We're going to promote it and get
mhm.
the dialogue." And I said, "Sure." So myself and another mother from St. John, we wrote our stories and they've published them on the website. And yeah, I've gotten a lot of supportive messages, and hopefully I can, keep sharing Tyler's story, and you know, things will change for the better.
Well, when I first read it, I'm just going to say a couple of things that, of course, I filled up with emotion because I'm a mother. And there, but for the
Hmm.
grace of God, go I. It could be any one of us, myself, my next door neighbor, any one of us in this whole universe that has a
Hmm.
kid walking the walk that your son did, and you being the mom
Hmm.
that had to go through that nightmare of an ordeal. I was so
Yeah,
proud of you, Juanita, and I am so proud of
thank
you
you.
because you're so authentic. Okay, it takes someone that you can pen words. It's easy to tell a little story and gloss it up or dress it up, whatever.
Mhm.
But from the raw point of view that you took, it was just like from the heart onto the paper, and it grabbed me.
Yeah,
So if you can tell that story that well, then I know that's the beginning to generating a better results in our community and elsewhere. And like you said,
mhm.
just getting people on board. That's the first step, is getting it out there. And you're bold and brave,
Exactly.
and bravo to
Mhm.
you. Yes, it's healthy.
Yeah,
It's stepping forward. You're stepping into a brighter space with lots of support. It's off your chest now, and people know
hmm,
the story.
exactly.
Proud of
And
you.
like, there's other people, like I was saying, it's not a statistic; it's a person. And Tyler was wonderful. He was funny. I'm involved with the Ellis Park Community Garden, and I think when I'm up there gardening sometimes, oh, Tyler would love this. He'd be up here with me and digging and planting and talking, and I everything I do, I think, oh, what if Tyler was here? Because he would go anywhere with me. He was the funniest kid. You know how teenagers, and I know I was like this. If my parents were anywhere near me when there was a group of other teenagers around, I was embarrassed. Tyler would go anywhere with me. One time he was having problems at school, and I'd have to go sit with him in the library trying to get him caught up in his work. And I walked into school and he was like, "Hey, Mom." And then after at lunchtime, he's like, "Come have lunch in the cafeteria with me and my friends." Like
Aw.
he was just such
Sweet,
a
sweet.
sweet, sweet
Yeah,
boy. And
yeah.
yeah, he wasn't always sweet. Like sometimes he was. We had tough times with him. I mean, I'm not making him out to be a saint, but
Yeah,
he was he was funny. Like I'd get mad. He goes, "Oh,
yeah.
Mommy's mad again," and he he just had a personality that people just gravitated to.
Mhm.
I remember when during the wake, one of his the good friend's father came through the line, and he was saying, "I'm so mad at Tyler. I'm so mad at him."
Oh,
And I'm like, "I know." And then he turned around on on his way to the casket, and he said to me, he goes, "But you could never stay mad at Tyler." And I'm like, "No, you never could." Like he just, he just was that type of personality. He, like I said, he he's truly missed. Like it's a really
Yeah.
big hole in our lives. And yeah,
Juanita, just before we end the show, you know, what is the one thing that you want everyone to remember about Tyler? You know, as your boy, you know, not the young man that accidentally overdosed, because that is not the sum of his life.
right.
But what's that one thing that you want people to think about when they think about Tyler?
How to be kind to others and non-judgmental. Like he would be friends with anybody. Like he loved people, and if you were kind to him or like a kind person, he just was kind. He was good, and he loved people, and he would be so upset to see anyone treated the wrong way, and he just always wanted people to be happy. And so if anything, for his memory, just be good to one another, and
Yeah.
help when you can. Like he was a good soul, and
You
we
know,
Yeah.
miss him a lot.
Juanita, I can't thank you enough, really, for sharing your story with us, and
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
and challenging us to do better, and to remember Tyler,
Yeah.
and to remember that those who are struggling are people, and that we need
mhm,
to do better for them. So, you know, a
we do.
huge thank you for being on the show today.
Oh, well, thank you
Yeah.
very much for having me. Thanks.
You did a beautiful job of explaining to people how things happen the way they happen and how you
Yeah.
Oh,
learn to
thank.
cope. So thank
I
you.
hope. I hope so. All right.
Well,
Yeah.
and
So we just.
we want to thank all of our viewers for
Oh,
being out there today. And you know what, we'll be back next Monday. But you know, thanks for watching this episode of Have a Chat. And as Juanita said, be kind to one another.